YouTube, what's good? Senju, back at it again with another video. So for today, we have the PvP build for the Dagger and Spear. I have no idea what I'm going to name this build at the time of the recording, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to come up with a crafty name and put it in the title. So if you happen to see the name, I don't know, maybe comment down below and tell me if you like the name. Also, I'm trying a new thumbnail style, and I'm really just trying to separate myself from everybody else's thumbnails because I don't want mine to look identical to everybody else's or make it look like I'm copying and pasting. So I've been taking a lot of time to develop my own style. That way it's very easy to find my content, and it appeals more to the kind of character that I am rather than just, you know, tossing some flashy text on the screen with a couple of thumbnails. So let me know if you guys like the new style of the thumbnails. Let me know if it could be sharper or something, or maybe the colors are too bright. You know, just give me some constructive feedback so I can use that to enhance the thumbnails a little bit more. Now, to the PvP build. What is it? It is a Spear Dagger build as stated before, and as you can see, you already see what the skills are, but we're going to go in depth pretty soon. How would you describe this build, Senj? That's a great question, Senj. Let's go ahead and tell you. This build is basically going to be your tank and spank. Although you're not a tank, which is a good thing, because that means you're going to be more mobile than a tank, and people won't expect you to be as tanky as you are due to the unyielding Sentinel skill giving you a 4k HP shield, so you can finally basically have a 1-up on all the longbow spammers crushing on a passive. So let's go ahead and get into this build. We're going to go ahead and go over it and explain exactly what it is about this build. We're going to start off with the gear, you know, as soon as I can get to the gear window. So, because Maxroll hasn't updated the website yet to have spears, I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way and go through piece by piece and show you exactly what we're running. And then just keep checking the link in the description, and eventually Maxroll should have the spears, and you'll be able to get the updated build guide with all of the fully maxed out gear, as well as the traits, the resonance, the rune synergies, and everything. So for today, we have Laquarius's Wicked Thorns. Now, it says that I have rune slots. That is because I purchased the rune slots. However, I do not have a rune synergy. But same old daggers, critical hit chance, heavy attack chance, and hit chance. The spear. This spear is very important because if you were running dagger crossbow, in most cases, unless you're going to be running crossbow dagger, which I'm going to be testing out later today, you're most likely going to be giving up your Rex Chimera's crossbows for the spear. So what I did was I went to look for a spear that had dex on it so that you could keep the same stat points that you had when you were running the Rex Chimera's Laquarius combo, especially if you were running my build where you needed that 11 dex to meet the certain breakpoint for dexterity. So this spear not only gives you the breakpoint, but in exchange for the bonus damage, which you don't need anymore because you're not running a crossbow, you get 20% extra range, which is insane. If I was to run this with the crossbows, I could hit from here to Zimbabwe. That's the kind of, that's juice, man. So I'm happy that they literally just made a pole arm of the resistance. It's so good. Like, this is probably going to be the most overlooked spear because everybody's going to go after the dungeon spear and woo, I got shy calls. And no, this is the spear right here. This is the one. If you are a dex main, you're really running on evasion, this is the spear that you need to get. So eventually, once I get everything fully traded, keep in mind this just came out a couple of hours ago, it'll have hit chance, max HP, and heavy attack chance. I'm going full in on heavy attack, which is why I did not change the PvP build from prior, because everything just carried over very well for the spear, considering that the spear is built for heavy attacks and defense. So Phantom Wolf Mask, Ancient Tapestry Mantle, we have the Plate of the Field General, Grip of the Executioner, Phantom Wolf Breeches, Sabatons of the Field General, the Icy Necklace of Strength. You can get this from the arena vendor. They will have it for the tokens that you get from just completing your arena weeklies. You need 9 to purchase this, and then it's very easy to trade after that. You have the Braces of the Primal King, the Etched Alabaster Band, which I will be changing to the Sapphire Dimensional Band, and then you have Band of the Chosen One and the Forbidden Eternal Chain. This build is very easy to put together. especially if you're clearing T2 content. It's very easy to put together. I'd say at most, if you want to buy everything, you're spending around, just because of the cloak, probably 1300 lucent. That's it. And that's on the high end. On average, you're probably spending about 900 to 1000, because most of this stuff is extremely cheap in the market. In fact, the most expensive thing outside of the cloak is probably the belt, and you can get that through the dungeon. So it's not difficult for you to get this gear. You will be just fine. Now, stat points: 31, 38, 30, 61 because of the current spear, and then 10, which is just the base fortitude that they give you. I'll be experimenting with this later on to see if I can maybe give up dex in exchange for fortitude if I don't lose too much evasion. And then, because again we changed our weapon and we're not fully traded where I want to be currently, we have 1000 evasion, which will be 1200 when I'm done. We have 900 magic evasion, which will be 1100 when I'm done. The hit chance will be around, I believe it's going to be around 800 to 900 when I'm done. So we're looking really good on all the stats. I mean, skill damage resistance, skill damage boost is cooking. Still got a bit of bonus damage, but it's not so important because we have a one-hit wonder weapon. 11.8k health. Eventually will be around 12.5 when I'm fully done with the build. So the stats aren't even done, and they're already juiced. Not to mention this spear isn't even fully leveled. It's level 5. Look at the base damage on this thing. I feel like I'm walking around with a offhanded dentist greatsword. It's so good, man. So let's get into the skills and explain why this build is hitting the way that it's hitting. Alrighty, getting into our skills, we have the daggers first. Now we are going to start with Shadow Strike. And on Shadow Strike, we have the skill distance increased. We have Thundercloud's Bombing and Lightning Infusion. Now, you're probably wondering why we're running this. It's a very specific reason, actually. See, on Spear, you have access to a lot of debuffs, but there aren't really any debuffs that give you access to nuking someone's endurance. And endurance is going to be kind of a sought-after stat going into the future, because a lot of people are not going to want to build for evasion. It's too difficult to build for evasion in the current state of the game as is already. And with more hit chance dropping, people are going to slowly move from evasion to endurance. However, Lightning Infusion reduces the endurance of an enemy at about, I want to say it's 400 and something. And then you can stack this with other endurance reducing effects. So it's really good when you're pushing a single target that might happen to be a little bit tankier than normal. You can pop the ability on the staff as well as popping the ability Lightning Infusion to go ahead and give you that endurance nerf. And you just nuke everything at that point because they have no way to sit there and mitigate your crit damage, which is very good for you at least. So again, we have Lightning Infusion with Thundercloud's Bombing. We have Thunder Spirit, which is the morph of Umbral Focus, and the main reason why I'm running this is because it procs on every single hit from one of these spirit abilities that I'll show you in a second. And due to that happening, it's a good chance that if enemies are stacked up on top of each other, you could chain the damage to one of the nearby enemies and just get a little bit of extra chip damage in, which could result in you getting another kill later. So Thunder Spirit, although I'm still testing it, I'm pretty sure it's going to stay on the build. Ankle Strike, bread and butter. You already know, clip him in his, knock his kneecaps out. And he's sitting on the floor crying wolf. That's all 4 daggers outside of the camouflage cloak with its specializations. And boy, oh boy, let's go ahead and get to the spear. So for the spear, you have 2 specific playstyles. You have the burst playstyle and you have the ignition playstyle. And right off rip, burst playstyle is strong as heck, but the main issue is that the debuff, which is weaken burst, that applies for the burst build, reduces the enemy CC, but it can't be refreshed. So if you were looking to basically keep that status effect up so you could proc other things as you go through your rotation, you're gonna have to stop what you're doing to proc that ability so that you can keep that rotation going. Is it skillful? Yes, but it also just sounds like a tedious thing that didn't really need to be added. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, on to the skills. We have Flaming Arc, and this is basically the morph of Culling Arc. Now, what this does is you will stab the target twice, kind of similar to Cleaving Moonlight. This is basically the spear's version of Cleaving Moonlight, where you will attack the target twice on one hit, and then on the second hit, you will spin around in a circle, causing the ignite status. And if the target happens to have 5 ignition status effects on them, you will start dealing 20% more damage towards that target with the ability that has ignite on it. Now, this counts for all weapons that have ignite on it. As long as that target has 5 stacks of ignitions, from what I've been able to find, you can take any one of these weapons that synergizes with ignition, or any one of these skills that synergizes with the ignition skill effect, and you will get that 20% extra damage on the target. So this is just a primer, a free primer for you. So always have this in your rotation. Javelin Inferno. This basically is the skill that everybody's been seeing, where you're able to toss the javelin and it will chain to multiple targets, and the more targets that are in its wake, the stronger that the ability gets. Now, why are we running this in PvP is because, well, 2 reasons. For some instances, you will have sections where enemies will clump up together and you can go ahead and just melt them. But for the other cases, I actually prefer this specifically because it gives you the movement speed reduction. The movement speed reduction is huge when it comes to chasing down rats in PvP. When you have to sit over there and close the gap between you and that healer or that staff runner that's just taking off the Narnia, being able to hit them with the Javelin Inferno and then reducing their movement speed by 50% for 5 seconds is something that you just cannot pass up. So I would highly recommend that you run this. We also have Explosive Fury, and we are using, my fault, brand new weapon. We have Vicious Fury, and it is the conversion kit Explosive Fury that we are running with the conditional hit. This makes it so that if I happen to prone a target, I will get an additional cast on top of the 5 that I get for attacking an enemy anyway. Now, Unyielding Sentinel, which is basically the bread and butter of your defense when you combine it with Camouflage Cloak. One is going to allow you to get a shield and absorb some damage, while the other will make you invisible. So they go hand in hand, and it is a genius combination for defense, which is why I'm saying this is probably going to be the strongest class for the spear, because you have insanely good survivability, you have evasion, which means you don't have to build for endurance, and to make matters worse for everybody else, if you happen to have a healer on your back line or some kind of staff user in your back line that just happens to be the bane of everybody else's existence, it only takes one spear user to get his hands on you, and if he does the combo right, then sayonara staff or healer. Now, nothing else is getting ran here except Rising Slash, which is basically going to be your pseudo gap closer for the spear, and this ability will charge the target, deal a certain amount of damage, and then on the next cast of this ability, which you can cast back to back, it will cause the target to explode, and the damage is based on the proportion of burst and ignition stacks that you have on the enemy. Now, for the very last ability, we have Phoenix Barrage. Now, this is basically the spear's version of Merciless Barrage. I mean, hence the name Phoenix Barrage. However, it is significantly worse than Merciless Barrage. Merciless Barrage did not lock you in place. You had pretty decent movement speed, and because it was a lot easier to set up for Merciless Barrage due to the ability to hit targets pretty much from all angles, because it happened in a 360-degree radius of your character, Phoenix Barrage to me just seems like the Walmart version of Merciless Barrage for spear. I'm still testing it, but there are going to be some cases where you know, let's say you try to use this yourself, there's going to be some cases where you use this ability and the target may be prone, he might be tornadoed, and you just won't hit him, and you just wasted a 23-second cooldown ability. So while I'm testing it, I'd say wait until I get some more information on this, and then maybe this could be viable. So that is the build. I'll have some gameplay at the end of the video for you guys to watch, so that way you guys can go ahead and see exactly what I'm talking about. And as far as I know, I got to get back to the spear grind because I want to get this weapon fully traded, and I want to do a large scale PvP build. This is your small scale arena 12-man guild event war games build. However, we still need a castle siege build and tons of other builds. So I'm gonna get back in the lab. You better get to grinding, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.